and this COVID-19 has put us in a situation which is quite came urgently. Most of us in pharmaceuticals and including healthcare doctors, they were thinking that digital is something not for healthcare. So much of regulation, so much of fear. So people thought it is not, may not be required. Human touch with the doctor, with the patient, or medical reps with the doctor is something which continue. But the situation, the lockdown, the COVID-19 forced us in such a way that unless until we use digital, we can't communicate to our patient, we can't communicate to our physicians in case of pharmaceutical company. So that became some sort of mandate to us, to whether you like or don't like, to try digital, to embrace digital. That is good in the sense that that is forcing us to the swimming pool. Unless until we jump in the swimming pool, you may not be able to learn swimming, right? As I was talking about the panel, we have a three distinguished panel from three different fields as it was the last week. We have Dr. Pradeep Kumar, who is the medical director, a senior consultant physician, cardiology and diabetology specialist. He runs a big hospital, Brookfield Hospital, in very posh area in Bangalore. And what I love about him, I know him personally for a couple of decades now, and we have been working together in physicians education. And first time, actually, we are talking together, joining together with physician and pharmaceutical professionals together. So welcome, Dr. Pradeep. We are looking for, I think a large number of people are looking for listen to you. What exactly they can do, the pharmaceutical company can do for medical community as a whole.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Then we have, yeah, so we'll come back to you in a moment. We have Salil Kalyanpur. Many of you in the panel know Salil very, very closely. Many of the doctors also know Salil very, very closely. We have been friends for more than 20 years, though working in totally different company now. Salil has a long career in pharmaceutical leadership with Indian MNC and MNC companies. Now he is trying to help pharmaceutical company and other companies to embrace digital. Salil will brief about himself more to you. And third person we have representing pharmaceutical company group is Krishna Kumar. He is the Associate Vice President in Hetero Pharmaceuticals, Hetero Healthcare Limited. So one by one, I'm inviting you, starting from Dr. Pradeep, to share in brief what you see about this situation in the short run currently. What will be the implication of this lockdown, not only during the lockdown period, but beyond, in short term, mid term, and long term? What are the challenges you see here, and what are the possible new door it opened us for us? So over to Dr. Pradeep Kumar first.
Thank you, Pranav. Thank you, co-panelists. It's wonderful having all of you around on the same platform. It has either been either doctors or pharmaceutical representatives that I have been addressing, but this is the first time where we are having a cross section of both these people. So hope to share some best practices that we could adopt, which could be mutually beneficial for both of us. Okay. So coming to the questions that Pranav raised on the given situation that we have, how do we go about? 3 points that we want to talk about. How are we going to utilize this challenge that we have come across, convert this adversity into an opportunity, and see how we can utilize this to strengthen this relationship between the healthcare practitioners and the pharmaceutical industry? That is point number one. Point number two, how is it that we are going to keep this interaction relevant in the constraints of social distancing, lockdown, and we don't know how long this is going to proceed? And the third point is on how we would probably make this engagement even more stronger than a live presence? Is there means and modalities that we could probably adopt to make this even more stronger than a live presence? So necessity is the mother of all innovations. Every adversity is an opportunity for entrepreneurs. And that's what I learned when we decided to take our entire hospital onto a virtual platform, offering our entire gamut of services, right from consultations to multi-speciality consultations, to picking up samples from their home, delivering medicines to their home. We have completed the entire life cycle of a patient's interaction at one visit, and taking all this on a virtual platform and offering a at the doorstep delivery of these services. So it is with this background that I wanted to share in a few of my thought processes for my co-panelists to take a comment on, and to my delegates who are here to see how they could strengthen their relationship with the healthcare practitioners. I'm looking at it as dividing this into three set of doctors. One set of doctors are not so tech savvy doctors. Second set of doctors are relatively tech savvy doctors. And third group of doctors are the ultra tech savvy doctors. So what we need to do from the pharma industry is you need to start creating products and services to match these three different group of doctors. You can't have a square peg in a round hole. So you need to try and see how you can devise products and services accordingly. Now, to the not so tech savvy doctors, the first set of services that if I belong to that group, what is it that I would want to do? I want to keep my practice relevant, my practice going on. I need to ensure that I am available to my patients at any given point of time. So the first thing that we need to probably enable this set of doctors is bring in an online consultation platform available to this doctor, train this doctor in such a way that he is able to seamlessly go about doing his consultation processes. We would have different set of doctors in this. When I say the non-tech savvy, we are talking probably about the senior generation of physicians, a relatively senior generation of physicians. So it is very difficult for those set of doctors to change over their practice abruptly. So we need to probably try and develop a platform wherein it would be a voice command kind of a process where the doctor just continues his online consultations with the patients, and all this is transcribed into a textual matter, and this gets generated into an online prescription, and this can be just sent to the patient on a click of a button. This is what a doctor who is non-so tech savvy would probably expect as the probable first service from the pharma industry. The second set of doctors whom I'm talking about is the tech savvy kind of a doctors. So when you're talking about tech savvy doctors, it is these set of doctors who already have gone on into a online consultation platform. And to keep this engagement regular and better, what could the pharmaceutical industries probably try to do in these individuals is take them on to the next level on being relevant to their group of practice. So here we are talking about their communication with their peers, the doctors community as one set, and to the non-technical people, could be the pharmaceutical industry or could be the common patients. So to these kind of a patients, to this kind of a set of people, we could probably engage with this set of doctors by creating social media platforms for them to become relevant to the industry, by creating channels on the Facebook, by creating broadcast messages, by creating a platform to run ad campaigns, to create YouTube channels, to probably create a blog for them to talk about and write about. By doing all these things, the pharmaceutical industry stays relevant by saying that this particular program is sponsored by so-and-so. And here, there is a relevance between the doctor's credibility and the pharmaceutical credibility being maintained, not being pushy enough, and trying to make sure that the end result of passing on the right kind of a knowledge to the doctors and to the patients community is enhanced and it transverses all boundaries. Now, the third set of doctors that we're talking about is the ultra tech savvy doctors. Now, these ultra tech savvy doctors have already done these two things, and they wanted to see how they can take their businesses to the next level. Now, here, what we could probably do is the pharmaceutical industry can enable through their associations with the leading organizations and bodies across the globe. It could be leading organizations and institutions within the country or outside. We have the American Cardiology Society, we have the European Society for Study of Diabetes. We have various such societies that are available. How can the doctor stay relevant and up to date with all these various platforms and engage these consultants also to take and collaborate with their services to enhance their practices? The doctor sitting here can offer his expertise and consultation to anyone sitting across in the European country, to the Middle East country, if those services are not available. He can offer his services to the not so developed countries like the African countries. They can probably offer their services. So it is here geographical boundaries are completely taken off, and here you could probably help the doctor to take his practice across to various other sections. So this is my first set of recommendations that I would probably put forth for the pharmaceutical industries to engage with doctors on these three platforms, three different category of doctors. Over to Pranav.
Pranav, I'll take it from.
Thank you, Dr. Pradeep. I think, first of all, compliment. I think starting the telemedicine at your hospital and reaching out to the patient at this time where they are isolated in their home, and what particularly the diabetes and hypertensive patient or any patient need is the at this critical moment. A lot of support, not only in the term of medication, rather the some sort of assurance if their parameters is getting managed properly or not. So congrats for leading that wave among the Indian clinicians. So very happy to hear about. You also have shared a lot of possibilities for pharmaceutical company. How can they actually collaborate, partner with healthcare community, with hospital or with individual doctors? That is, I think, a lot of possibilities you have pointed out. We can further deep dive in the next phase of discussion into that. Let us move to Shalil. Salil, you listen, Dr. Pradeep Kumar saying that what pharmaceutical company can do, and this is not a rocket science. This everybody knew that, right? They can do, they can support. The problem is that why they have not done. You have been interacting with the people. You have been interacting with the leaders of the industry. So, can you share after your introduction? Can you share this part also? What is holding them back? What is the issues pharmaceutical company? They know this is possible, but why they are not doing? They have not done so far. Over to Shalim.
Thank you, Pranav. Thank you. Dr. Pradeep, I must start by complimenting you. Fabulous talk. Thank you very much for the introduction, plus the the plethora of solutions that you just rattled off just like that. So thanks a lot. There's a lot of food for thought in that. So I want to introduce myself. My name. I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry for about 25 years, and then 3 years ago I decided to quit the rat race and started off my own digital health consulting company. I worked with companies like Pfizer and GSK for about 17, 18 years out of those 25, and Dr. Reddy's before that. So that's how I know Pranav. Now my work is basically to help companies understand the importance of digital transformation and to think about how to work in the with alternate channels, reaching out to doctors and creating value for customers. Now, this was something, a favorite phrase that I used to always be encountered with is digital is the future. And I kept hearing this until 3 weeks ago. And then 3 weeks later, 3 weeks ago, everybody started to say, I want to do digital today. I want to do it now. So the whole idea about digital is that it's not a switch. You can't switch it off or on, right? So you need to have a lot of preparation. You need to have a lot of different thinking and all those kind of things. So I also think that the environment that has catalyzed this change it's nothing new for pharma. It's just that it got accelerated because of the external environment. Is the going tough for pharma? Of course it is. But is it something new? No, because pharma has always been between a rock and a hard place. We've always been either, on one side you're pressurized by government to be socially responsible. On the other, you're pressurized by investors to be profitable. On one hand, you're supposed to be keeping your prices low. On the other hand, you're supposed to have innovation and recovering those costs. So it's not easy. And life in pharma has been pretty tough for a long time. What happened now? What happened now is that an economic meltdown of this size was in our foreseeable memory never, biomedical cause was never the reason. So it always happened because a bank collapsed or a sector collapsed or a country went rogue or oil suddenly went somewhere. So there were geopolitical issues which essentially caused this kind of turmoil, which pharma really had nothing to do with. Today, the difference is that pharma is caught in this because the cause is a biomedical one. Now, what has happened because of this biomedical cause is that it has stretched the healthcare industry and stakeholders to the limits. All of you are extremely busy with trying to manage the situation with whatever support you can get or whatever funds are available to you, etc., etc. And in all of this comes our medical rep and says, "Sir, please continue to prescribe my brand." Right? Now, this is something where it is pissing you off undoubtedly, right? But I would like to take this opportunity to explain our point of view also, a pharma point of view, right? So we've seen news, on TV. I would strongly recommend you not to, but then when you see news on TV, you see policemen managing crowds in the only way that they know. So they don't differentiate between a man going out to buy groceries and milk and another man going to set fire to that grocery shop. Both of them get the danda on the ass. Now, why does this happen? This happens because this is the only way that the policeman has been trained to control or to do his job. Now, if you use this or extend this analogy to pharma, the only thing that a medical rep knows to do is to ask you for prescriptions. Okay, so I am not at all, I feel pity for those guys because those fellows have never been trained by leaders. It's a leadership failure. They've never been trained by people at the top or people who are in decision-making roles, have never understood the importance of empathy. They've not been able to train these people on how the external environment has changed and how they should modify their behavior accordingly. Okay, so if that is the case, then what else could you expect? And there is no, it's not a surprise that the medical fraternity is lashing back with the IMA issuing those circulars and, individual doctors sending messages to medical reps on WhatsApp saying, don't be arrogant and how insensitive you are and all of that. It's that poor guy doesn't know what to do. He's in a very bad shape. And somebody who spends 10 to 12 hours outside on the street, on the roads, going out and meeting doctors and all, now has been locked up at home, doesn't know how to do his job, and suddenly feels the entire world is coming crashing down around him because every time he heard the word digital, he was told that his job is at risk. Digital will take away your job and, technology will substitute you, your role is redundant and this and that. And now he's seeing it happening. So the mentality of these people is they're under tremendous pressure from all directions. This is a place where pharma leadership has to step up. Pharma leadership has to step up with a lot of empathy, with a lot of understanding of the medical rep's mentality, and it has to assuage his feelings and make him feel comfortable that not only will the organization help him to upskill, but it will also help him to retain his job and continue doing and being productive in whatever way possible, right? The onus of that is not on the rep. The onus of that is on the management of the organization. Now, here comes the underlying crux of the problem, which I think Pranav was alluding to. Everybody understands that doctors need services. They appreciate services. Pharma doesn't do this. Why is that? In my opinion, that is the case because pharma is extremely product centric. It always thinks about my prescription, my brand, my money, and my market share. Okay, the customer comes last. Kasht se marne wala aadmi, like they say. It's a cliche you must have always heard. Right? So when the customer is not in the front and center, it is very difficult for pharma to think anything beyond or look beyond their nose. This is a problem, and once your incentivization is around the amount of sales that you make, the only thing that you will ever worry about is selling. And services are always seen as a cost, as an expense. It is never seen as a revenue model. Okay, this is where the digital world is exploding. Just for everyone to know, $44 billion has flown into digital tech companies over the last 10 years. To give you context, the Indian pharmaceutical market is about $33 billion. Okay, it's not a comparable number because this is a 1-year number while I'm talking about 10 years, but it's context, right? So one separate industry has been set up on the side. What are those companies doing? Those companies are essentially healthcare companies which have got technology at their core. The reason for them to spring up is not because digital is suddenly the fad. The reason for them to spring up is because they are seeing large white spaces in services or in problem solution mode where there are hundreds of thousands of problems that doctors face, that patients face, that caregivers face, that different stakeholders in the industry face, who no one is trying to address. Pharma typically, I mean, many people on the call who would be in the industry for 25, 30 years, they would have seen that services was a very integral part of the industry. Patient reach out, education, information dissemination, these are all things that companies did with a lot of pride. Somewhere down the line, we lost the road. Why? Because we started to think of these as services, and anything that does not give you a return on investment is never considered a good thing to be done in the business. So my outreach now, what I'm trying to impress over here is that two important mindset changes are required for pharma to take care or to proceed in the post-COVID world. As the post-COVID world emerges, corporate India is going to emerge out of it bruised badly. Okay, corporate leaders are going to look at these alternative channels very hard, because not only is it a cost saving, it is also something that doctors are increasingly preferring. So if you see the Ernst & Young report that a colleague of mine circulated recently, earlier today, it shows that many doctors prefer calls to be done remotely or touch points to happen remotely. So there was a American Medical Association article that got published in that the Annals of Internal Medicine or something, which said that psychiatrists are preferring 91% remote calls. And the lowest specialty amongst doctors are dermatologists, who prefer about 65%. So even the least preferred doctors are asking 2/3 less rep visits. What do you do in a scenario like this? In a scenario like this, if you are reaching out remotely to doctors, you are basically getting into an impersonal selling at a and you have a big distance. It's not even face to face. Now imagine the importance of soft skills that emerges from them. You're not going to sell based on scientific evidence or on proof of concept or anything, because doctors are very well aware of this. Google is available to everybody. Doctors are more educated, more well-read than pharma, and I don't think they depend on pharma for information unless circumstances like a new product launch or something of that sort. Right? So if information dissemination is not what pharma is giving, what is it giving? So if products are not going to be your differentiator, you need to move towards the services model. And companies which have got tech at the core are essentially those that think of the services model as their revenue generator and not the products. So if you think of the Practos, the Librates, the Curifys, the Cult Fits, 1mg, whoever, they are all working on creating an ecosystem, which is a bevy of products and services that are offered to the customer based on the customer's requirement, not on their needs. Right? So just because this is a product that has a great product margin, I will launch it, but if this product doesn't have a great product margin, I will not launch it. It's a very product-oriented thought process. A customer-oriented thought process is, does this actually help the doctor to serve his patient better? If it does, it needs to be in the market, whether I make money or not. I will think about how to make money because I can develop alternate revenue models, right? So there is where imagination is important. Now, this is too easy. So, in a post-COVID world where you are having challenges of doctors not wanting to meet you, which is not a new challenge, it was there even earlier. So, imagine in an offline scenario where doctors never appreciated the content or never gave us enough time to meet them. How can we ever imagine that doing the same thing will get us enough time, airtime with doctors in an online scenario? You know? So fundamentally, there are shifts that are happening where I think pharma needs to pivot basically on 2 points. One is move from a product centric thinking to a customer centric thinking. Second, evaluate the service model very, 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 very closely because doctors are asking for services. No doctor has said bring a new product out except for a vaccine for COVID. Right? I'm not saying that new products are not important. What I'm saying is they are not the differentiators. The differentiators and the continuing relationship with the medical fraternity will be based on how quickly and how efficiently we are able to bring out services. So that's my limited point for today.
Great, Salil. I think the kind of whole scenario you have pictured, given us to the whole audience now, it is something like do or die situation. What I see personally, I used to talk to tell many of the pharma leader that I personally feel that the pharma industry, the leaders of pharma industry, they need to make disruption. Otherwise, they will get disrupted by entirely new entity. It is like Uber, what Uber did in transportation, conveyance, right? Uber, small tech company, and they disrupted big transport company.
Yep.
If pharma is not taking that challenge, what Salil enumerated very clearly, it is in underline letter, just write down is that it is getting disrupted by somebody like Uber one day. So coming back to Krishna,
Yep.
so Krishna, I think many of the things Salil shared about why pharma is still not savvy to digital or not embracing. So I would ask you your point of view. In addition to that, I would also ask you, Salil, talk about product centricity to customer centricity. Pharma is believing, at least they believe that they know that they are customer centric. And what they mean by customer centric? Are sponsoring just doctor to anything,
Okay.
any damn thing, right? From the medical conference, which is good anyway,
Okay.
but beyond medical conference also, so much of sponsoring, and they believe that that is customer centricity.
Not
So
exactly.
two questions for you, Krishna.
Okay.
Number one is that what is why you means not only you, I'm talking about the community of pharmaceutical leaders who think that a sponsorship is the only thing they can be customer centric. Number two, is the current leadership of the pharmaceuticals are equipped enough or sensitive enough in the first place
Okay.
to change to meet to challenge the new situation which came abruptly thanks to COVID-19.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. Thanks to the co-panelists. Both of them have explained the ways and means of extending support to the doctors who are fighting day in and day out, like Dr. Pradeep just did. Morning, he was there with the patient. Again, he's going to go in between. He has come here. And I've heard Professor Salim earlier also is 100% authority in a digital marketing framework. I am representing the true audience who are there in the system right now, who are connected to us. Around 300 odd people have connected. I'm truly representing them as a pharma leader. I don't, for time being, I'll forget about my designation and all that. I'm not going to explain that. Rather, I'm here as a seeker, and I'm going to ask certain questions which will answer what uh, Pranav has just asked. So we were not a company, or I'm saying all the top companies, we have not been into just giving gifts and sponsorship. We've been engaging the customer in their continued medical education, in the the platforms like or the interfaces of patient and doctor, and of course patient and farmer. we've been engaging them earlier as well. We are a technology, I'm talking about not my company as a top pharmaceutical companies as a whole. We are a force which have been into supporting both the continued medical education and patient-doctor interfaces, especially from origination point of view to the diagnostics and treatment and fulfillment of medicine availability, and of course, continuous medical care. So these are the areas where the top companies at least have been engaging themselves. But there is a very, very important element, which is the personal element, the rep or the seniors from the organization going and meeting the doctor, organizing everything. This was the case. Currently, that particular thing is absent. And of course, it is going to take longer than what we think. Maybe it is 3 months or 6 months. We are not going to be allowed to meet the doctor. So that's where the challenge comes. Yes, technology is there. The company has got all the top companies they are technologically very, very acute. At the same time, they have the contact with the doctor, but still there is a large gap. So today, for example, for my company, my organization, we are able to engage some 20 customers, the top 20 customers of every territory. Beyond that, we are not able to go, because the webinars and all the other platforms that we are offering, it is monotonous. Every company is offering that. One company or the other is doing the webinars with multiple set of doctors. The same set of doctors are engaged. They get bored, they get agitated. Doctors like you, Dr. Pradeep, are fully into patient care and they don't have time for this. That's where I am seeking answers from you. Even when Pranav was asking me a question, I'm seeking an answer, because many of my colleagues who have connected onto the web, they are seeking answers. Yes, we can simply say that webinars are available, scientific forums are available, but it is not going to help. So as an expert in this particular field, I would request Professor Salil to give us the solution. And as a doctor, what are your needs from pharmaceutical companies? Think for a moment that you don't have a solution point of view. From the need perspective, kindly give us the answers to what I'm asking. What are your needs from pharmaceutical companies? And as experts, Professor Salil or Pranav himself can answer that. So that's what I'm looking out from this particular panel.
Thank you, Krishna. Thank you very much. I will come back to Dr. Pradeep. Before that, Dr. Pradeep, I have a question from a couple of people. Pramod, I have questions from you. I will come to that. Before that, let me make a point here. This is again very relevant. This happened this week or last week. One of the senior marketing manager, I don't know, he's in the call today. He was in call last week. He was talking to me saying that my company, my boss, my senior CEO has told to go digital. To go digital, they have said, so we purchased the Zoom account and giving to the medical reps to connect the doctor and trying to do. But visibly, he was not convinced with this idea. I don't know how to do that. Actually, this reminded me a story, a very short story of this lockdown. I will share here. In this lockdown, everybody is confined in the room, right? So arthritis is a problem which often troubles to the elderly people, right? So this story is about arthritis. One centipede got arthritis, right? See, we have 2 legs and it has 100 legs. It got arthritis in all 100 legs, and it was trying to climb the wall. Of course, very painful. One of the sparrow, just looking at that centipede, it felt bad about that centipede. Said, my dear friend centipede, it is a bad idea to have 50 pairs of leg. I can empathize with you. I can feel how much pain you are going through. trying to climb this wall. So don't you feel that having two leg is better option? Centipede tried to move his head to see this sparrow, and they said, "Yeah, yes, like you have two leg and two wings also. Uh, that's good. I could, if I could have. So tell me how to get that two leg only, not the 50 pair of leg." The sparrow said, "That I don't know. I'm a policy maker." So I think Salil understood, and many of you understood my point here. It actually happened now in this COVID scenario. I see a lot of centipede here, and more than that, the pathetic part of the sparrow, the leadership of the companies, pharmaceutical company, they are telling the marketing manager, go digital, go digital, go digital. But how to go, nobody's know that. Nobody empathize with the doctors. That's why we saw a flood of IMA chapters writing to the pharmaceutical company openly, saying, stop sending SMS to us, stop calling to us, stop sending the brand name and logos to us. This is disturbing to us. So that is the situation. One side, the industry leader is saying to go digital, and that's why the medical reps or marketing manager, the product manager, they are trying to do something or other thing in digital. At the other side, it's pathetic that I see Dr. Pradeep Kumar very clearly said those things. There is a lot of possibilities pharmaceutical companies are not venturing to understand. My concern is that people should first Salil mentioned this point, empathy. Empathize with the healthcare professionals. Dr. Pradeep said that three category of the people. One shoes will not fit to all. With this remark, I will go to Dr. Pradeep Kumar with questions, and then Salil. The questions asked by Pramod to Dr. Pradeep is that how do you see doctor-patient interaction will change in the post-COVID era? Do you think physical counseling be reduced to a great extent?
Thanks, Pramod. What this echo? Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, very loud and clear.
Okay, fine. So I'll take this question in a manner where we would talk about, again, trying to give a simplistic answer to a very complex situation. I will take this as, what are the immediate requirements for the healthcare professionals? What is the intermediate requirements for the healthcare professionals? And what is a long time requirement for the healthcare professionals? Now this we will divide it into what is the solution that could probably be provided for a vast base of majority of the doctors, which is the base of the pyramid, where probably these services are going to be readily accepted by anyone and everyone, irrespective of whether they're being tech savvy, non-tech savvy, and that kind of a stuff. And then narrow this pyramid down up to say that, okay, this base services are going to be acceptable to everyone, and then there may be some services that may be applicable to a set of doctors, and there may be some niche services that are going to be applicable for the only a light set of healthcare professionals at the top of the pyramid. Now, to share some examples, in the given scenario that we have right now, there is an acute scarcity of masks, personal protection equipments, hand sanitizers. These are basic necessities that a healthcare professional would require to continue to render his services, at least to safeguard himself and the healthcare professionals that he is part of in a system. This is not readily available to the doctors and the healthcare professionals. Even if I have to go and pay in the market, I'm still not able to get this because they say it is not available to us immediately. It will take at least another week's time. It will take another 10 days time. So there are certain pharmaceutical industries that have come out with this wonderful solution, wherein they have started dispatching these basic requirements to the doctors who are at the forefront taking care of the patients. This is a very welcome gesture that I would strongly support the pharmaceutical industries to take this up, wherein this is a basic needs. Hand sanitizers, gloves, personal equipment, protection equipments, masks, and some stuff like this. So this is something that you'd probably be able to dispatch to a vast number of doctors, and they would not find offending. And you're facilitating this, and this is a service that Salil was talking about. This is going to strengthen this relationship between the pharmaceutical industries and the doctors. At the need of hour, they've come out with something like this.
Excellent.
Now, taking to the next level that you're talking about, what is it that the challenges that are there? The challenges that are there for the doctors is for delivery of this care of patients. Once we address that, there is something we talked about, consultation. Now, follow-up to the consultation is talking about delivery of medications, home pickup of samples. Now, if the pharmaceutical industries are going to engage with these service providers and network with this group of providers, it could be anyone in the industry. There are a dime a dozen that are available. If you are going to take this up and say that, okay, I partner with a group of doctors to complete this cycle. You need your samples of your patients to be picked up. We will go ahead and engage with them and then do this. You want your medications to be picked up. I'm not bothered about whether my brand is a part of your prescription or not. I'll ensure that, yes, you require these services to be done. We will engage a set of people. The Swiggies are there, the Zomatos are there. You have n number of these kind of people who are available. If they can deliver such non-essential commodities at their doorstep, why not such basic essential commodities that can be delivered to the patients at their doorstep? Something similar like this. If the breakdown, if the lockdown opens up, or if there is something that we can talk about, transportation of patients from their residences to the hospital complexes when it is required, when we have to do something of this nature, or talking about a doctor on-call kind of a facility at their doorstep. If we have to have the Ubers of the world, the Olas of the world partnering, they have the Olas and the others have already started something called essential services or emergency services in their portfolio of offerings. So if they're able to club this along with the doctors and say that this is something that we could offer and take them across to facilitate these services to the doorstep of the patients. Now, these are some kind of an ideas. I'm just thinking out of the box and how we could probably make this interesting, engaging, and achieve our one-time objective goal of making sure that the patient-doctor relationship is strengthened through the pharmaceutical vehicle. Now, as Pranav was talking about, as Krishna Kumar was talking about, the webinars that you're talking about, the various kind of links that you keep sending to the doctors, tell me how many of them are interested in doing this. On a given day, a doctor will be flooded with nothing less than 15 to 20 such kind of links that are sent to the doctors. We hardly look into that. We do not have time to look into that. Instead of engaging in those kind of activities, if we are able to diversify into something like this is something that could probably be more helpful and for strengthening this association between the doctors, the pharmaceutical industries, and talking about the service-oriented approach that we're talking about. And when you talk about the elite crowd, when you're talking about the top niche set of policymakers that we are going to talk about, we could talk of the bigwigs that are there in the industry. Engage them. And when you're going to talk to them, and when you're going to talk about webinars, and we're going to talk about Zoom conferences, and when you have these kind of people, I'm sure that I will definitely be wanting to talk about and be a part of that particular elite crowd. Not talking about every Tom, Dick, or Harry wanting to come over and be on a webcast link. If the personality who's going to deliver this is not going to be interesting to me, or not going to be something a subject matter expert, then I'm not too keen on attending those kind of things. So that's how we should probably kind of grade our offerings into immediate, intermediate, and long term. I was talking about long term, and this long term is probably the way to go. This is here to stay. Trust me, it is going to be a new normal that we are going to see. We are not going to engage with pharmaceutical representatives coming over into our consultation chambers in the days to come. How is it that they can keep reminding themselves of their products? We had one session with a Zoom link with a group of representatives, all their managers, the regional managers, the area managers, all coming on into a single call and then talking about their product to us in 2 or 3 minute slot. How can this be made different? How can this probably be made different? We say out of sight is out of mind, but still, how can all this be offered as a bouquet to say, yes, we are a team that are ready to come over and be a part of your clinic setup or hospital setup. We will be engaging our services in whatever way and fashion that you want. It could not be by physically meeting me, but through these services, you're going to get engaged. That by itself is going to be an excellent platform for us to keep yourselves relevant to the doctors in their clinical practice and continue going about it. So these are my thought processes and some ideas that I wanted to share with you. Hope it answers.
Thank you, Dr. Pradeep. You have already answered some of the questions which came. I think Swarup Chanda, your question got already answered. Amit, your question also got answered by Dr. Pradeep. One question here is there for Salil. So Salil, the thing is that you talk about the interconnected system where the multiple stakeholder is connecting to each other to serve the customers. Ultimate customer is the patient, and for pharmaceutical companies, the doctors is also a customer. So how do you see possibilities of integrating multiple stakeholders? Talked about Practo sort of thing, talked about others like DocPlexus or Curify sort of thing. How you see, because everybody is working in their vertical. Forget about them. Even the doctors in pharmaceutical company, they don't talk each other. They talk each other what? They, as you said, they request for prescription or doctor request for a sponsorship. Not beyond that. This is not talking. In my discipline of profession, as many of know here, I'm a customer experience expert. We have a voice of customer where we listen the customer. Doesn't mean that just asking and getting answer, rather doing some study, we call it ethnography. In case of digital, it is digital ethnography study to understand the hidden need, to understand the voice of the customer, which is not a spoken. So Salil, these questions to you, what do you see the possibilities of this vertically working industry, like the startups like Curify or DocPlexus, pharmaceutical companies, doctors community, startups industry. I work with the startups. I am mentoring some of the startups. They have a very, very lovely, very useful product in pipeline, technology solution in pipeline. How to integrate those things, how that everybody should talk each other also, and then the ultimate customer for all of us is the patient, to serve the patient in the most effective way to enhance the not only experience but outcome of the healthcare services.
So in my opinion, I think the way the future is going to be is that companies which are, increasingly we are seeing that businesses that are going to come in the future, or at least businesses which are evolving into the future, will have to have tech at their core, right? So they will have to adopt technology. They will have to have a large amount of value creation dependent on technology. Now, when we think about companies that have, or one way of predicting the future is basically when you analyze the past or you see what is happening in this area, right? So if you see companies which have got tech at their core, it is very difficult for us to put our finger on their business model and say that this is what their model is. For example, if you look at Google has got home health. It's got, Google Home, it's got browsers, it's got business suites, it's got entertainment, it's got Duo, it's got whatever, the whole host of things that, or the products that Google produces. Now you put your finger on, if you look at that chart of products that Google has, can you put your finger on that product and say that Google is in this business? It's difficult. Okay, so business models are blurring. Look at Amazon. Okay, so Amazon's example is Jeff Bezos. Basically, last year, in the third quarter of 2019, he invested $1 billion to do one thing and one thing only, to improve customer experience. Now, the delivery of Amazon packages used to take 2 days. He wanted to reduce it to 1 day. He invested $1 billion in this. What did he do? He bought 60 planes. Okay, Amazon doesn't run an airline. Yeah, but he bought 60 planes. Now, why? Because he wanted to control freight and he wanted to get a better deal on whatever. So he was managing the cost structure well. Now, these kind of things. Now, what is the business model of Amazon? Amazon is an e-tailer. It is a bookstore. It's an online bookstore. It is etc. etc. Right? Why would this company, if that is their business model, why would this company need 60 planes? If Google is basically a search engine, why does it require to have so many different? It has Verily, it has DeepMind, it has so many different functions, so it diversified so much that they had to actually build a shell company, or at least an umbrella company called Alphabet, to control all the different business units of Google. So my limited point is that technology companies don't work on a single business model. Technology companies think that their business model is not to sell their products, it is to engage customers. Okay, that's a fundamental shift that happens in old age economy companies and new age economy companies. So new age economy companies wonder about how to create avenues for customer acquisition. Okay, another example that I'll give you is back home, closer to home and closer to healthcare. It's a company called CureFit. Okay, everyone's heard of CureFit, CultFit, and all. They've got so many different CultFit, MindFit, EatFit, Take, whatever fit. They've got a whole host of things, which essentially. So what's their business model? Are they gyms? Are they cloud kitchens? Are they, mental health hospitals? You can't put your finger on that. The idea is they are creating a whole ecosystem of services, irrespective of the business model. They're creating an ecosystem of services which helps them in two things. One, customer acquisition happens through multiple inlets. Okay, it's not only through a prescription of a drug that my revenue will come. My revenue will come from many, many different areas. And secondly, a customer who gets acquired is given such a fabulous experience for the money's worth that he pays. And that's where the pricing model has changed drastically in these companies. These companies do not look for large upfront payments, unlike pharma, right? So a pharma oncology product, if you're going to buy an oncology product, you'll have to sell your house. Okay, you want 2 doses, you sell your kidney, something like that, right? Now, if these companies essentially work on extremely small level of money. So you look at Netflix model, or you look at Amazon Prime model, or you look at any of these models, they're subscription based. Okay, so you have to pay a few ₹100 a month or a few ₹1,000 for an annual subscription, which is nothing. And the amount of value you get in return for that ₹1,000 or ₹1,200 or $14.99 or whatever you paid is awesome. You have no problem reconciling to the fact that you paid ₹1,000 or ₹1,200 or something. How does the company make money? Are they loss making? They're not. They make tremendous amount of profit. How do they do that? Because their number of consumers are huge. They've got consumers in the crores, right? So CureFit has 1.3 crore people who are monthly active users. Okay, so even if they charge $500 or ₹1,000 per consumer for a year, they've got like 1.3 crores multiplied by 1,000. So number of zeros is incalculable by the human mind. So that's what I was saying. Our problem is we only think about medicine sold into price of medicine is equal to revenue. Number of pills sold into price of that pill is equal to revenue. That's not the case. There are service models. There are so many different revenue streams that you can start. And those revenue streams essentially cannot be done by one company. You need to have an ecosystem of those companies. Now, tomorrow, let's say 1mg starts. Today, 1mg is delivering medicines. Okay. Tomorrow, it starts primary healthcare. Day after tomorrow, it starts medical insurance. 3 days, whatever. A day later, they start healthy food. A day after that, they get into medical insurance. A day after that, they get into home healthcare. A day after that, they get into whatever else, an entire ecosystem starts to get formed. And they start to gather. Let's say they have about 2.5, 3 crore patients with them, or people with them, subscribers with them. They will come to pharma and say, boss, I've got 3 crore patients. I can ensure that this much volume of your medicine is sold. Okay, give me medicine at cost plus 1 paisa. What will pharma do? If you think this model is not happening, you just need to check out what is happening to Walmart, how Walmart talks to companies in Latin America and in Europe. Okay, GSK had to put up an additional plant to supply to Walmart, but their margins went from 33% gross margin to 7.5%. Okay, if you think NLEM is a problem, you don't know what's coming. Okay, your margins are going to be so crunched, and that is the problem. The problem is, if you do not get into the service model, if you do not get into customer acquisition in a very serious way, if you do not think about experiences for these customers, if you don't pivot your business model from only selling my product to serving my customer, you are going to become irrelevant. And that irrelevance will come in the form of you being a supplier of low-cost generic medicines. That's it, nothing else. E-pharmacies have already started to do this, right? The generic business in India is anywhere between 25 to 40,000 crores. Okay, it's not a small amount. Oh, 1 lakh ke baad jo aata hai na, that is the generic business. The size of the pharmaceutical industry is 1,40,000 crores, right? The 40,000 crore after the 1 lakh crores is basically generic. It's not a small amount at all. It's a huge threat. Okay, the pharma industry is growing and growing and growing. Now, we are a price-controlled market, and the joke that I find is that a price-controlled market is driven by price, not by volume growth, not by new product introductions. How can that happen? Where is the volume coming from? The volume is coming from these generics, which are like cheap, nothing. They are made from they are not from the top 250 companies which are audited by IMS and AWACS. That's why you will not find any of those numbers coming there. This is completely an additional model. It's a huge shift that is happening. The rug is being pulled from under pharma's feet. And when ecosystems like the one that you asked, Pranav, about vertical integration of different players, if 1mg does this, or Purify does this, or something like this, the medicine part is going to be just a tiny bit. Okay, and over there, what's the relevance of pharma? The relevance of pharma is you will be reduced to a low-cost generic supplier. That's it. Okay, so is it an existential threat? Probably not. Is it something that is going to completely change the way people perceive pharma, or the what that the pharma industry has today? I'm sure it will.
I think many of the listeners who are in the call, the pharma leaders, I see there are a good number of people who are general manager and above, vice president and CEO also of pharmaceutical companies. I can think that how they are feeling that the word of Salil may be threatening, but my friend, that is the reality coming to door around the corner. So this is high time to think on that. Thanks, Salil, for putting those things in a very nice way. I think we are able to appreciate that situation which is going to come to pharmaceutical company unless until we change that. I have a comment and questions for Krishna Kumar. So primarily I'm taking these questions from Gaurang and Bhaskar. They are actually concerned about the medical reps. What is going to happen to medical reps? Because post lockdown also, Dr. Pradeep Kumar has very clearly said there is a new normal now. The things will not be the same what it was in the past. You will not get surprised if many of the hospital and doctors will not allow visit of medical reps to their hospital, their centers, their clinics for pretty long time, maybe 1 year or 2 or 3 years, we don't know, because of the fear of this virus is still there, and maybe because of the new behavior they tasted. They would like to keep a distance from the medical reps. So Krishna, what you see happening, the skill set of the medical reps as a leader of a pharmaceutical company, what is your thought the leader should work upon putting on the medical reps training, the not only medical rep, the land managers from the area manager, regional manager, sales manager, because other than the supervisory, all are doing the same job right now, going and meeting doctor and asking, please prescribe, sir. So how do you see the possibilities as a leader of the industry? How do you see what should be done by the senior leader of pharmaceutical industry to safeguard the job of medical reps?
Okay. Excellent question, Pranav. Actually, I was pondering over the same question. Dr. Pradeep and Professor Salil have given us a lot of food for thought. Okay. So the conventional method of marketing is not going to be in place anymore. It's going to be very, very different. It is the conventional plus X. So when the plus X comes, the skill set has to be different for the not only for the rep, for the entire pharmaceutical hierarchy. The set has to be different in terms of delivering that, in terms of conceptualizing that, and then taking that to the doctor. So, for example, when we are talking about near webinar, and Dr. Pradeep is telling it has to be for different set of doctors, different kind of platforms that is not there in our mind currently. So the rep has to be trained, has to segment the doctors in terms of their needs and then offer a solution to them. That's one part of it. The second part of it is that even the patient doctor interface is going to be changed. Only the emergency services would be offered to the patient. The patients are also restricted to come into the clinic. So now their telemedicine is going to be the order of the day. So how are we going to equip our people to offer a solution to the doctor, even when we are tech savvy and we are able to provide a solution? Finally, the delivery has to be through my frontliners. So I'm going to train them from these talks that I have taken, whatever I have taken. My immediate job is to train my rep to deliver this kind of conventional plus X kind of service. For that, we have to conceptualize, we have to get into the modules and then train. Today, even the training is conventional. The last 15 days or so, we've been training our PSRs, okay, in terms of science or maybe selling skill, or in terms of maybe a case study is given and they are working on that. Now I get the idea that I have to train them on very different set of skills. This is what is there in my mind. Of course, I have to conceptualize and create a module for that. The first and foremost thing is that at the senior level, my offering to the doctor is going to be changed. The conventional offering will not help. That's the main point I'm taking from this particular discussion.
Thank you, Krishna. So we are coming to the closure of this session. Before that, I want a 1 minute summary, thinking precisely on the digital customer engagement part from all three of you. Focus more on the digital customer engagement, a message, clear-cut message, and what is your say concluding this session one by one, starting from Dr. Pradeep, then Salil, then Krishna.
So my suggestions to the pharma industry on trying to take this digital is, yes, try to enable a digital platform for as many doctors as possible, to enable your teleconsultation platform to the doctors who do not have them. The tech savvy doctors, take them on to the next level to create blogs, to create YouTube channels, to create platforms where they can probably be conducting the ad campaigns, the Facebook campaigns, to take their businesses to the next level. And to the next ultra tech savvy doctors, probably to make sure that they can take their business beyond boundaries and see how they could probably do a collaboration with various academic bodies across, is one such particular platform offerings that they could probably be looking at. They could offer subscriptions to leading platforms like the Updates, the Medscapes, the other things, the Elite panel of subscriptions that are made available, not many doctors are aware of such platforms, and if they can make their care platforms as protocolized as possible, and everything can be made at the click of a button, to say that it is a syndromic approach, and these offerings are made to the doctors, that would probably take them on to the next level. And within the immediate future, in the current given scenario, I don't foresee MCI objecting to promoting offerings of needs like the personal protection kits, the sanitizers, those things in the current immediate scenario, something of this kind, which is non-digital. I'm diversing from the topic that you talked about. So these are some of my suggestions to the pharma industry on how we could probably have a better engagement in the ultimate option of serving our patients to the best possible extent in the current situation.
Salil.
I think digital outreach to doctors, outreach to doctors, digital or otherwise, essentially stems from one fact. I think the outreach, the objective of doing I'm sorry, there's an echo coming. Okay.
My point is already, as I said, the current situation gives us an opportunity to think unconventional way. Before we take the technology to the doctor's chamber, the conventional thinking should change, and absolutely new things should be in place. So, Dr. Pradeep has given lots of ideas. So is Professor Salil. So I'm going to take that and work on it.
So I invite anybody from the audience who wants to make comment. Please feel free to raise hand and make a final comment.
Just one point, Mr. Pranav.
Go ahead, Krishna.
I would like to hear Dr. Hariram.
Doctor?
Mr. Hariram, who's there on the, in the audience.
Hare Krishnan, are you able to speak? Anyway, he is going to be panelist in subsequent session. So we'll get enough time from him.
Yeah, either Mr. Hariram or Mr. Professor Hattangadi. One of them can talk.
Yeah, Professor, I believe you are still in call, right? Can you raise the hand, please? Yeah, I can see Hariram is speaking. Yeah. Hariram, you can hear you. Professor Hariram. You can go ahead, just speak that. Just click the microphone icon and you can be live. I think if he is able to speak to us, then fine. Otherwise, anyway, he will be next time. So, Professor Hariram. Okay, so I think this is 1 hour time is very less time to discuss this issue, but I'm very thankful to all 3 of the panelists. You put a lot of thoughts, food for thoughts rather, for all pharmaceutical companies. It is not going to be a solution immediately, but I think more of the discussion is required around that. We need to understand each other's world, and then I'm trying to do myself to collaborate with multiple companies. This problem is not for one company. The problem which across the industry in India, globally rather actually, it resonated well in the I4Pharma conference also. That we saw a lot of things happening around the globe. This is the right time to try to understand, empathize with the customer, and try to do, unless until you jump in the swimming pool, you'll never learn swimming. The first thing to learn swimming you have to in the pool. But with the caution, if you're not having understanding about the pool, the depth, your strength, you might get drawn. So in this case, understand the technology as well as the first thing first is understand the customer's world, what they need. And I'm very thankful to Dr. Pradeep Kumar in particular. He has actually spoken a lot of things what medical professional need. This reminded me about Vishnu Pitama. I'm ending with this. You know the Vishnu Pitama in the Mahabharata war. Everybody knew that nobody can kill him, nobody can defeat him because he has Ichha Mritu. He can die only when he want to die, right? And Pandavas were very at the low side. Sometimes then Arjun went to Bhishma Pitama asking him, Tat, tell me how I can kill you. The language may be very harsh here, but here in this pharmaceutical marketing term, we say about marketing is a war front. I think Dr. Pradeep Kumar here very graciously told us about how to actually kill doctors. I don't mean here, I mean here how to serve better to them so that they can give you a better share of their prescription to pharmaceutical company. We'll meet again on next Friday at 5 o'clock. Thank you very much. Have a confined, and I don't say safe because you are safe in your houses. So enjoyable, mindful weekend. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, audience. Thank you, Pranav. Thank you, Salil. And thank you, Krishna Kumar. Wonderful being sharing with you. Thank you.